to address is which character traits do we talk about here or focus on, and why do we focus on those? I'm just curious, who is anybody? I'm sure you're familiar. Who in here is familiar with the character traits that we use here? So most of you know. Okay, I try to maybe. So we have 8. Anybody know a couple of them?
Empathy, collaboration.
Say it louder.
Empathy, collaboration. What is it?
Stewardship.
Perseverance, stewardships,
Craftsmanship.
craftsmanship,
Responsibility.
Responsibility.
Is there no.
Yeah, perseverance.
Perseverance.
There's an anagram, right?
Well, it's stage,
Steve?
so stewardship, advocacy, gratitude, and empathy.
And gratitude is missing.
And then I think we got CCRP, right? Craftsmanship,
Yes, and so
collaboration.
yeah, the school loves acronyms. I'm not great at all the acronyms because they change. That's the one part that's not the same every year, so I just ignore them all, frankly. But I remember the 8 character traits. The way the school breaks them down is there's relational character traits, and those, as you guys mentioned, are empathy, stewardship, advocacy, and gratitude. And then there's the performance character traits, which are the CCRP, the collaboration, craftsmanship, perseverance, and responsibility. When you asked why these character traits, all expedition learning style schools have to follow their curriculum based on 8 character traits. And these were the 8 that were derived with the beginning of the school. I think, just so I don't misspeak, I think craftsmanship was creativity, right? And I think then they changed it to craftsmanship. And that, I believe, is because there is a feeling that we want to somewhat measure these character traits. Sometimes that's hard for me because of my role with the children. I don't like to measure anything with them because they change from one day to the next, one year to the next, depending on their age and where they're at. But I also see a lot of value in it. And the 4 that we focus on measuring, or the administration focuses on measuring, are the CCRP. So all the teachers are given a rubric in kindergarten through 6th grade with learning targets, where they can actually measure the students in terms of collaboration, craftsmanship, perseverance, and responsibility. The relational character traits are not measured in a concrete manner, but they're exhibited through the child's behavior, interaction, their field studies. Taylor likes to point out that the relational character traits are really shown in the children's field work when we're doing community service and all of our projects, because that's when the empathy shows up, the stewardship shows up, the advocacy, and being grateful, and learning from there as a launching pad. In the upper school, they're not measured by a rubric like that. Instead, and this is an evolution. The upper school, this is new for this year, but they are also trying to measure the CCRP, the performance character traits, and that's more through their contribution to what they're doing in their field work and in their work, also with their norms and their active listening skills, as well as their preparatory skills. The reason they sort of shift that as the kids get older is because it's assumed by middle school years that the character traits, advocacy and empathy, for instance, gratitude, we're hopeful that these are already embedded within the children. And fortunately, from where I sit, it's so amazing because these kids are just fantastic here. And I've yet to find a kid who, in my one-on-one check-ins, doesn't display beautiful parts of their heart. And still, everybody's learning at different stages at different times, but it's really been lovely to see. It's encouraging for this time. So another question you ask is, how are these character traits developed at T? So as all of you know, everything the kids learn in the classroom is replicated in a field study, and the underlying foundation is intended to be the character traits. So after the kids, a couple years ago, kids were in Panama, and they were doing all their math, all their science, all their history in Panama, like measuring the water in Panama. They were also doing their service in Panama. Their character traits are embedded within each of these activities, so it's constantly reflected. In my check-ins with the kids, we're constantly moving back to, well, how'd you feel about this? How did you help your neighbor? You know, how did you advocate for others? How did you advocate for yourself? Can you share with me, like, it was really hard, so how did you get through that? How did you persevere through that? So the kids are constantly forced to reflect. The other thing I love about the school is I've had a few middle school boys, not mentioning names, who recently had a little conflict, and I had to have them, we sat down together, we're talking it out, and they were like, it is so exhausting to be bad here. Because you can talk about everything. Like we're like, how did that affect others? There's another thing, practice we use here called restorative practice. So you need to talk about how that impacts your heart, how that impact your friend, how that impact your mother, your grandmother. So kids are like, oh, this is so annoying. So they would just rather be kind. It's just so much easier, you know. Actually, there's some fifth graders who challenge me on that sometimes. But I won't mention names of them. But they concur. In the end, it's just easier, and it's just more fun to get along. So what I did bring with me is
Surrender to kindness.
So how the character traits are taught is really, it's in the expeditions. Last year, we developed for the first time a curriculum. So I do lunch bunches with all the kids, kindergarten through 6th grade, and then middle school, I'm still trying to figure out middle school and high school. The first couple years, I made all the kids come to lunch bunch, even Logan. He was a great lunch buncher, actually, but who was a senior last year. However, I've noticed some of the high schoolers really don't want to have lunch with me, which I don't mind. I understand. I can take rejection. But so high school kids, it's now optional. I'll have lunch. I'll say we're gonna have topic or not. I'll ask sometimes kids that like to talk how they want me to do that, and I try to keep it pretty loose. But I'm available to sit with a certain grade band during their lunchtime. The lower school kid, it started out that I would do lunch bunches, and I would focus on each character trait at a different lunch bunch, and I would swing through each class 8 times throughout the year. That, it was working okay, I think, but I think the teachers are doing a better job than me, to be quite honest, about focusing on the character traits in like a lesson. So what we started doing last year is we got trained, myself and a few teachers, on what's called kimochis. Has anybody heard of the kimochi friends? They're so cute. I brought them. So this is kindergarten through 6th grade, and some of the high school kids also know about these kimochi friends because they like them, which is interesting. I like them too, actually, so I get it. And definitely, the lesson is intended up through 5th grade, but our 6th grade crew here is probably the biggest fan. So whatever, we use them all. And this helps us talk about our feelings. I feel like I just show you guys. So we have 5 of them. Oh, he's busy, so I won't bother him. But we have 5, and I'll just quickly show you because they are really, really cute. Kids love them. But so this is Bug. Bug is here to teach all the kids that it's okay to be shy. Bug's wings start inside. And Bug is our friend who it's really hard for Bug to come out of his shell. So Bug starts out the day sometimes like not wanting to talk to anybody, not sure why, but that's okay because that's how Bug is made. But so what Bug is teaching us is it's okay, and Bug is also teaching us courage, that with support, Bug needs so much courage to get his wings out. And then the lessons associated with Bug is that once Bug's wings are out, Bug can accomplish anything. But for Bug to use courage is so hard. Bug is like very different than, for instance, here's Hugtopus. Hugtopus, courage comes pretty easy. Hugtopus has a lot of courage and is pretty happy-go-lucky, not shy. But what Hugtopus struggles with is Hugtopus is our friend that bumps into everybody and gets in trouble, has to go to the back of the line, and is like, what did I do? I didn't need to do anything. We have a lot of Hugtopuses around here. Hugtopus teaches us, though, Hugtopus is really good-natured. Hugtopus also has 6 legs, and I asked the kids how many legs do octopuses have? 8. So Hugtopus also teaches us to be proud, to be different, and there's really neat lessons that come along with Hugtopus. And then, this is a favorite by a lot of kids. This is every human, I think, all the time. So this is Cloud. Cloud is our friend sorry, that is really teaches us that it's okay to be sad and mad, but what Cloud is working on is emotion regulation. So Cloud goes from really happy to all of a sudden like angry. Somebody took his pencil and man, there's a big problem gonna happen. So there's a lot of lessons that help the kids that maybe like have an outburst all of a sudden, or like for the older kids, I've actually used this for a 9th grader, but just more in a story rather than a stuffed animal, that he was really fearful of going away down the Colorado River, and we talked about that anxiety that you feel and how to manage that. And so it's a feeling that we all have, and it's just a way of how we can navigate within ourselves so we can still get mad and sad, but it's how we react. It's not okay to be mean. The message for little kids is we can be mad and sad, but not mean. For bigger kids, it's more, I always tell the kids, embrace those moments when you're not feeling great. It's okay, and that's how we appreciate when we feel at peace with ourselves. So then, Kat, got some cats around here too. Kat is our friend. Kat is our friend that is a fantastic leader. So Kat's the person that gets things done, highly organized, tends to just really know how to take charge and teaches us beautiful lessons around that. The thing Kat's working on is though Kat can be a little bit bossy. We do a lot of lessons, and there's a few girls' lunch benches that, and it's nice because the kids identify with them. There's a cute little 3rd grader who tells me, I think I'm all of them. And I'm like, we all are a little bit, but he actually really is all. I mean, he's very dynamic. And then our last friend, this is a favorite, this is one of your favorite, I don't know yours, but a lot of little kids like this one. Do you remember this one's name? So the preschool also has their own set of all these friends. This is Lovey Dove. Who comes with Lovey Dove? Baby turtle dove. So this is an adopted baby. Lovey Dove is here to teach us that Lovey Dove's our friend that is super kind. Like Lovey Dove can't be loving enough and always wants everybody to be okay. Often like the mother hen, and there's lessons that say if Lovey Dove could adopt everybody, Lovey Dove would, because that's her heart. However, what she struggles with, and this is also a feeling a lot of kids relate to, is when things are out of her control, like when other people have a conflict, she feels it. She gets really weighed down when there's problems and conflicts. And so what she's working on is we can only control ourselves. We can't control other people. So let that stress go, because that's not for you to solve right now, and it's okay, that person's having that, it's not for you to take on. So that's our lower school lessons, and like I said, they're written up till 5th grade, but I often bring them into all the grade bands because I love them, actually, and they're very helpful friends to me in the past. So that's pretty much it. In terms of my specific role, I meet with every kid in the school at least 2 times, some more frequently. It just depends on if a parent reaches out and asks me to do that, or sometimes children request it themselves. With the lower grades, sometimes teachers ask me to do learning targets and work with the kids on a more regular basis. But it is, as the kids get older, it tends to be more between the student and I. I do take high-level notes on what the kids share, just so I can remember. It's a lot of kids, so I have to have a little bit of notes of what they said. But the notes get more and more vague as the kids get older. The lower grades, again, I communicate with the teacher, I call the parents quite a bit if anything's concerning. As the kids get older, it changes. We usually just go for walks around here, and sometimes I just need to get some stuff out and then they just feel better. So I'm very lucky because they allow me to do my job in a very comfortable way, I think, for the kids. I try to support, so it's like one more layer of support that the kids get around here. So I'm happy that they guys have any questions. Yes.
No. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, how can parents best support the character traits of T at home? What do you recommend?
I think gratitude is probably the one, at least it seems like for my kids, but that seems to be one, if you have that, a lot of the other things come into play. I mean, empathy and advocacy obviously are big, and perseverance, but I think a lot of our families do that. Again, it's really fortunate because the school seems to attract just such special people who believe in this way of educating and, you know, and this model. So already we're set up for success because of that. Anybody who's taking the risk and putting their kids in an environment where they're not just going to be in a class, you have to believe in this already. So it's very lucky from that capacity. But I think gratitude is something that it helps the kids to remember, because it's easy as for all of us to take things for granted at times, just because that's human, you know. So, did you have a question?
I was just curious if you've seen some major changes since the school started. Some of the kids have been here from day one. Have you seen some major changes
In some of the kids? Well, I don't know. I've seen a shift in the kids. Like I could tell you, just in general, when the kids, like it seems to be by 4th and 5th grade in general, the kids get a little more feisty sometimes. 4th and 5th, and then 6th, they still, depending on, you know, every kid's different, but lingering on that. And then 7th, they're a little hyper. By 8th, they seem to start to mellow out. And then high school, a lot more mellow. It's interesting how it really seems to be a typical trend, and you know, you read about that, but from the seat I sit in, I see it from the last 8 years, you know, with certain children, how it's just amazing how they grow out of things. And I think preschool to kindergarten's a big shift too. They seem, Rosie's amazing. I wish every, I really wish every kid could have Miss Rosie one way. She's so strict though, but it's funny, the kindergarten teacher is the one that I have to schedule out furthest for lunch bunch, because she's very red. It's awesome that the kids just love her. But yeah, I think there's shifts, but there has been a lot of change with the structure, the academic piece, which I'm sure Nate shared with you guys last time. So that's tightened up quite a bit, to be sure. And the other advantage of us being an EL school that's private is we have a lot more flexibility with our curriculum. So we're an EL school, but the middle and high school is EL inspired. It's not actually EL. So it does allow us to have a lot more traditional tests and education, which I think a lot of us want our kids to be out there learning freely and on, you know, character, but also we want to make sure that we are keeping up with the rest of the world and meeting standards and all that. So that's been a nice thing. Yeah.
Question, Carolyn. My daughter's in 10th grade and it's just her 2nd year, so I'm like sad that she didn't get all the character development that all the younger kids are getting. So I'm just wondering how you try to integrate the newer kids that come in, especially at that upper grade level where they're kind of missing out on that.
Right, and we have so many new families in middle and high school, and I think what happens is that it's embedded. The character, I'm not like the master of it, I just help support it. So the teachers, in everything the kids do, they have to write a reflection paper that uses these 8 character traits. So they're automatically thinking like it's part of their education for the upper school. And then like Kira and I, we do lots of like, I love talking to her, she's so fun to talk to, but we talk and she likes reflecting. And so it's just more supporting already who these kids are. So an opportunity.
And I can attest to the upper school stuff. Both my boys are graduate and 11th grader. And, you know, you say that they don't really want to have lunch bunch with you because it's, you know,
Some
not enough or whatever.
Cody's not having lunch with me, but Logan did.
But with her presence, with Caroline being around and you know, bringing some of these groups together, both my boys have individually reached out to her. And at least once. I know one of them reaches out more than the other, but both of them. So that they just know someone's there in addition to their teachers and in addition to their parents. So it's been very helpful. Caroline is the
It is nice to be here because to see, like, I get this great job, and then the crew leaders are just amazing. I mean, we were in San Francisco last weekend, my family and I, and I had so many texts from teachers concerned about this kid and that kid, and I'm like, I can't believe teachers are thinking about this on their weekend. Like, I tend to think about it all the time, but that's what I like to do. But there's teachers that it's just really, it's really beautiful to see how much support they have here.
we've only been here for, a few months, but my daughter, when you brought up gratitude as being something that was really important that you were focusing on, or teachers, and that was a character trait. It was really interesting. Just yesterday, my car wouldn't start. My battery went dead, and it was some electrical thing with my car. And so we got a jump start from a friend, and then we drove to school. And on the way to school, there was that long traffic line that we're waiting in. And I was like, oh my gosh, what a morning, And she's sitting there, and all of a sudden she goes, Miss Susan, her teacher, Susan, this happened to her last week when her car, her battery was dead. She had to get it replaced. And she said she started off the day with a negative, bad attitude, kind of in a bad mood. And then as the morning went on and she was coming to school, she kept thinking of all the things that she was grateful for, like, at least I have a car, and I have a home, and I can go to the store and buy a battery. And so Avery's telling me all this while we're in line, and I'm like, I totally shifted my perspective. I was like, oh wow, okay. Let me redirect this negative energy. I'm like, Avery, you're absolutely right. And the car's beeping because the electrical is going crazy. And I'm like, right. But it was just really sweet because I hadn't heard her tap into gratitude before and put it in perspective. And she did that and I just thought that was really outstanding, and that you mentioned that today. So
The teachers, and so one thing that I have seen tighten up, and I'm sure Courtney can attest this too, the teachers every year seem stronger and stronger. I mean, this new slew that just came in, we hired like 7 or 8 new teachers this year, and every one I'm like, I just want to be them in my next life. Like, they're so amazing. And I think it's because to want to work here, you have to really want it. It's a lot of work. I mean, how often do you hear a teacher that has to travel with their kids for a week? Like, that's not for everybody, So it's really been attracting very special people. We had so many applicants too. It was amazing to see last year. Exciting.
So if we're seeing any challenges with our children, should we reach out to the teachers first, or to you, or just, of course, open a dialogue with them, but what will be your approach?
I never mind how anybody does it, but you're always welcome to call me or email me. Melanie likes the teacher to be the first stop. In general, sometimes it's just very private, and then the parent just reaches out to me directly, and that's fine also. I don't have to, which is really nice too. I think different than other schools, my relationship can be very intimate with the child and the parent. I help them get resources. It doesn't have to be part of the whole school thing. So, but I think typically if it's behavior, Melanie likes the teacher to be in the loop first, and then we go from there. But it's flexibility.
So Caroline is great. She's an enormous resource. I say this from experience because I regularly reach out to her.
And I reach out to her too, by the way. She's a great resource.
Yeah. We mutually rely upon one another. But, I mean, adhering and appreciating and respecting going to the teacher first on behavior, but if you just have a question around something and you just want some resources or some ideas, Caroline is a phenomenal resource in brainstorming pal.
Yeah, we do keep, I have a list of a whole bunch of resources in the community for all over the map, and that's helpful to anybody. So I can share that. Just call me or email me and I can get that. Yeah.
One question, I was surprised that there wasn't something about self-reliance in those 8 characteristics, and perseverance maybe brushes up against that a little bit.
Yeah.
But that
Responsibility.
I was going to say that.
It comes into responsibility because that's personal, and that's why it's in the performance section. If you were to divide them, what we used to call habits of scholarship, but the idea that you have to be responsible for yourself, and that's everything from in pre-K being able to put on your coat and your mittens before you go outside, to when you're in 9th grade and you're about to go on an 11-day field study, you better not forget your underwear or you're going to be in trouble for 11 days. So, I mean, it's, or responsibility to get your homework done on time and do your papers. I mean, so it is that self-reliance. They just call it responsibility. At least that's how I would.
Yeah, and I was thinking advocacy too, because advocacy is advocating for others and also for yourself, to be in charge of yourself. I mean, there are so many characters, and every EL school has, picks their own. It's like inspired. these are the ones, but there's a lot of independence because when you have your conflict, we don't say you're suspended because you just punched your kid. I mean, 3 times I think is an issue, but again, it's like you have to manage that, take responsibility, and deal with it. Talk, which is not always fun.
Any other questions? Great.
You mentioned that you keep notes and things, so is that shared, is that private to you?
Yeah,
Shared with the parents?
Not shared with parents. What happens is for every crew leader, I'll send them an update about every 2 or 3 weeks, saying, hey, I checked in with Susie, Tommy, Billy, Cal. I had these lunch bunches, and we focused on this activity. So often the teachers are emailing me and saying, can you please do a group and focus on this because we had this challenge. Like the 6th grade, I'm going in there tomorrow and I'm going to do a group on embracing chaos because they had a child got hurt on a field trip, and so we want them to know there's a really neat lesson. It's not a coach lesson, but I just like it, that talks about chaos. That chaos is going to happen throughout our life, and so just how to be chaos ready, not chaos proof, but chaos ready. So I'll do that. So I will share notes with the teacher, just recapping how the group went, just so I can remember really, and so the teacher knows what was done and what was communicated with the kid. And then with the 7 kids that maybe I met with over the last 2 weeks, it'll be 1 or 2 sentences, and it's not usually about for the littler kids, it's more information because it's less sensitive, typically. For the older kids, I always say to the child starting in about, I think, 4th grade actually this year, I'll say, are you okay with me putting this in the notes? And they usually love it in the notes, but it's usually things more in the middle and high school, the notes are strictly, hey, this kid would like if we can get a cafeteria, this is his suggestion. And what's wonderful about Mara is Mara actually follows up with the kids and says, hey, I heard you had this great idea. This is what we're thinking. Can you help me with this? I had a kid yesterday who told me in 8th grade that he wants to be a part of building the mountain bike park or mountain bike trails if we ever do that. So I'm like, I don't know, but I mentioned it to Nat, and all of a sudden Nat's on it with him to see how he can get more involved with that. So I try to write the notes though, so if they were published in the newspaper, it'd be comfortable for everybody. That's really, I'm very, very sensitive about that. A lot of these.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think those are all we've done for the school and our kids. Okay. Available for questions after. There's not much left of the meeting. We've got 9 minutes. So